Iran woke Israel up to another tough day this morning with another attack on Bi'r al-Saba or Bi'r Sheva, the southern capital of the state of Israel. Iran is clearly targeting more locations in that area. It has more targets, and today they targeted a building where Israelis get trained on drones and espionage for their military commanders and units as well. And we had multiple videos coming out about the damage today. Let's have a look at the first video here. That was, of course, just one of the videos, and there were other videos being published as well about an intense level of damage, more pictures as well being published by people in that area. Now, from an Iranian perspective, they said that this is a building, this building is called Gaviam 4, and that it trains Israeli personnel on the use of drones, espionage, and military units too. In particular, army commanders as well. They focus on army commanders. This was the damage that came from the building after the Iranian attack. Now, there are a couple of things that are interesting from this attack that came from Iran. The first one is the fact that it's a single missile attack. It wasn't as part of a missile barrage being launched at Israel. Only one missile was launched. And even more surprisingly, Israel actually confirmed that. So in Israel, there were multiple reports confirming that a single missile from Iran managed to penetrate the Israeli air defense systems. For example, there was this article here in the Israeli Ynet saying that only one missile launched from Iran and exploded and caused extensive damage to residential buildings. Of course, they're going to say residential buildings. There is no house. Everything is dismantled, as in the effects of that building. In other words, they said the entire house is destroyed. 7 injured or evacuated to hospital. And they said that the IRGC, of course, said that they attacked cyber targets in that location. According to the IDF, they actually planned a larger barrage. And listen to the claim of the Israeli army. The IDF said they were actually planning a larger barrage of missiles, but we attacked the launchers when we were in Iran. Okay, you attacked the launchers in Iran and you have so much up-to-date capability, then why didn't you bother to notify your friends back home, or back in the land that they stole, that another missile was going ahead? Very strange. It didn't make a lot of sense there. However, what's for sure is that Israel is confirming that this missile has indeed landed. Now, a couple of people said that they targeted the actual Microsoft building. There was damage seen from an area next to the Microsoft building, because clearly that attack happened next to it. Again, you know, they could be linked. Microsoft, well, there were publications about certain ties that they have with the Israeli army and the Israeli secret services too, but that wasn't the aim. The aim was clearly a building inside of Israel that is used for cyber attacks, for drones, and for training of the Israeli military command. Some people showed this. This was one of the images that was circulating. This is indeed a Microsoft building, but the attack was behind it. And again, some of these buildings are close in proximity, probably because of certain coordination and collaboration. But again, it wasn't the actual building that was attacked. It was called Gaviam, and there was another video being published about the level of damage, as we can see here in this video. So Iran, again, continuing the pattern of exhausting Israel 24/7, keeping Israel on high alert 24/7. Multiple attacks, drones 24/7. So drones are penetrating Israel almost every several hours. reports of drones breaching, and in many cases, people report drones, or people who will see a drone without the Israeli air defense systems being activated. That's something very, very serious. So what we're having in effect between Iran and Israel, of course, this missile coming without any warning and without any interception attempt, by the way. Now, we'll get to what are the possibilities behind that. But let's talk about the actual strategy of Iran. Iran is testing. So with every, of course, war or, heated exchange, but this is a war at the end of the day, people study each other. Both sides study each other, study their capabilities, their weaknesses on the job, while they are carrying out these actions. And Iran is clearly seeing certain weaknesses. The surprising thing is that Israel is confirming that this was only one missile and that it penetrated the Israeli air defense systems. There could be another explanation. Another explanation is, well, Iran is hacking the Israeli air defense systems and not letting them activate following a missile being launched. Another explanation would be, and that would be dependent on the actual missile being launched from Iran. Another explanation would be that they don't have the capacity to deal with any Iranian missile. Number three, the Israelis knew that the missile was coming, but they realized not to activate the air defense systems because they're running short on air defense missiles, and this place, from their perspective, wasn't important to a level where they would need to activate the air defense systems. It doesn't make sense in this case, seeing as Iran said it targeted a location that trains special forces, espionage, and drones, and what have you. So all of these are possibilities. But the interesting thing is that Israel is actually confirming that it penetrated. And guess what? They are publishing the footage. So these images and these videos came from Israel, and some of them were published on Israeli mainstream media, going against what Israel was actually saying several days back. We don't want to publish images, we don't want people to see anything, and we're warning the people who will be, they're still there, these threats, but Israel is doing that. Okay. Now, yesterday we were talking about the statements that were coming from Donald Trump. Donald Trump's White House spokesperson passing a message from Donald Trump saying that he will be making a decision on Iran, whether to participate, within 2 weeks. One of the possibilities that we discussed yesterday, that this could be an act of deception coming from the American administration, but they would actually be planning to go into a war with Iran and support Israel. However, they're trying to keep Iran lax, relaxed. Of course, from an Iranian perspective, they're on high alert, but that's a possibility there. Now, in the past couple of days, there are more reports of arms movements of ships, movements of weapons, planes, cargo, the aircraft carrier Nimitz on the way to the region, reports of more movements from the British Army, from the Australian Army as well, denials coming from some of them about any sort of participation. But what's for sure is there are certain moves. Now, some are saying that the United States is actually planning to participate as early as this weekend. Now, from an Israeli perspective, they were very disappointed of Donald Trump. Yesterday, there were multiple reports in Israel and articles about how Israel is very disappointed from this delay coming from Donald Trump, especially seeing as every minute that passes at the moment is very important for Israel. Every minute that they get no support, the Iranians are able to conduct actions like this and attack more important targets. Now, the other thing that pops up when you talk about the prospect of the United States going in is, well, what is Iran going to do? What is Iran going to do, and how are they able, or would they be able to handle an attack coming from the United States supporting Israel. And that would, of course, would depend on whether the United States goes in or not, the intensity of the attack, and to what extent does the United States participate. However, today, and regardless of the support that Iran would get, there was a clarification coming from the Iranian Ministry of Defense in relation to an expansion of the war, or this war going ahead for longer than usual. And they had this clarification here. The Iranian Ministry of Defense said that we have equipped our armed forces with all their combat needs for several years. This was quoted on Fars News Agency, saying that all of its facilities continue to operate robustly despite ongoing attacks targeting military industries, while affirming that it has equipped the armed forces with all they need to engage in combat for several years. This explains the approach that Iran is using now towards its escalation with Israel and during the escalation with Israel. Iran is practicing restraint. Iran isn't going all out completely. They're not using all of their missile capabilities with all intensity, because they know very well that this could be, at the end of the day, a war of attrition. That could work for the favor of Iran, by the way. However, this is not stopping the need of Israel and the lobbying of Israel to still try and push the Americans into this war. Now, all of that depends on Donald Trump. Donald Trump, there are many people who are opposing the prospect of joining a war with Israel. As a matter of fact, the majority of the Americans refuse such a participation, but there are very, very strong and influential voices inside of the United States who are still tied, of course, with Netanyahu and Israel, who want to send the United States to war, at least if it participates in something symbolic. Iran is prepared for all of those actions, but the actual fact of the matter is it would depend on Donald Trump. If Donald Trump decides to participate in the next few days, that will be very visible, and that will take the escalation to different levels, and it will potentially open all options to an all-out war that would include other countries in the region and potentially globally to join as well.